So in this video, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the process of prototyping. So when you think about engineering design, the one thing that I hope you remember from this lecture is that it's an iterative process. It's generally something that you're going to have to do over and over again because you don't have perfect information. And the key thing that I want to emphasize again is that you don't have perfect information from a variety of your stakeholders. Now, I haven't formally defined what a stakeholder here is, but a stakeholder is really a collection of all the people that kind of touch or are influenced by or influence your product. So clearly a stakeholder is going to be your customer base. Clearly a stakeholder, if you're actually manufacturing for a company and you have employees, all of your engineers, all of your designers, and so on. In addition, if you're developing a product that might be, I don't know, regulated by some federal agency, maybe it's a medical device, in that case, government regulators, the FDA would be a stakeholder of yours, and so on. So when you use the term stakeholder, it's really just anyone that is influenced at all by your product, whether they're the ones making it, whether they're the ones using it, or whether they're the ones regulating it. So they're always going to have information for you, imperfect information for you. So what that means is that the design process is going to be something you repeat over and over again. So if you think about it from a cycle point of view, what's really happening is you're getting to a point of failure, you're learning from that, and ideally you're improving it. So what's kind of the key to be able to take advantage of this? Well, we need to be biased towards action. Oftentimes, particularly when you're in a classroom environment, it's tempting to just talk about something and say, oh, it's difficult, I'll think about it tomorrow. But the quicker you can do something, the quicker you're going to be able to get to those initial failures. And the quicker that you get through those initial failures, you'll be moving towards those iterations which are converging ideally towards your actual end product. So what's kind of one of the tools that we can use if you think about the fact that the entire engineering design process has to iterate and the entire engineering design process is really, really long? So how can we kind of minimize cost given those two facts? Well, the idea of prototyping is incredibly valuable. And what is a prototype? Well, you can think of a prototype as any kind of product that has some features, maybe all the features, but at least some, that reflect the functionality of your ultimate end product. And the reason that it only has to have some is if your prototype only has some of those features, then you can take and produce it, and you can actually take it to stakeholders. Maybe it's customers, maybe it's end users, and you can actually get feedback from them, which would allow you to accelerate the iteration process. So anytime you don't have to go all the way to the end, if you can kind of shortcut and get some feedback and say, hey, this isn't a good design, we need to change these particular features, that's going to be incredibly valuable. So that's really the role of a prototype. So ideally, a prototype is something like a product, but it's not as expensive. It's something that you can get out quicker. And ideally, it will only have a subset of those features that you can actually test according to your stakeholders. So what I'd like you to do for this is watch this video that I have hyperlinked here that talks about the design process for an automated electronic defibrillator. And think about these questions that we've talked about and kind of introduced in this lecture. Who were the stakeholders for the AED? What was the actual design objective? Remember that when you talk about engineering design, you have an objective of your design subjected to constraints. Particularly, why was a key design objective that this device be intuitive? So intuitive just means easy to use. In addition, one of the bulleted questions, how were stakeholders valuable in the initial stages of the design process? So you'll be able to answer that once you watch the video. And how functional was the initial prototype developed in the video? And what that means is, was it fully a functional defibrillator, or did it only have certain of the characteristics? And even though it wasn't fully functional, did that prohibit its usefulness with respect to being able to accelerate failure in the engineering design process? So hopefully after you watch, you can kind of read some of these different answers that I have here. Of course, they're not perfect answers. You might have something different. But if you have any questions or want to talk about any of the things that I have here, feel free to shoot me an email. But I think that's a really good video kind of showing you the value of prototyping in the design process in terms of being able to get key features of your design in front of the customer quicker and to be able to iterate on those.